Who doesn't love stories? For language learners, stories are a wonderful way to practice English. They make it easier to understand and remember vocabulary. Also, by listening to stories read aloud, your ears become used to the sounds and rhythm of English. This helps with your pronunciation. Hi, I'm Jennifer, and in this video, you'll get to hear a collection of stories from past lessons and live streams. You can watch and read along, but I also encourage you to simply listen and enjoy. Let's start with a couple of family stories I shared in the past. So are you ready for a ghost story? Sit back and listen. My grandfather always made me laugh when he told this story. It didn't matter that I already knew the ending. It was the fun of hearing him tell the tale. As a young man, my grandfather used to perform with friends in a band in different small towns. They sang songs that their parents had taught them, mostly in Serbian. This was around 1940, a time in Western Pennsylvania when lots of kids were first-generation Americans, and at home they heard Serbian, Polish, and other Eastern European languages. Many came from coal mining families, and music was a bright spot in their lives. Well, after performing one night, my grandfather and his buddies were heading home. It was late, and they wondered about saving time and taking a shortcut through the cemetery. They decided to put any fears aside and take the shortcut. Somewhere in the middle of the dark cemetery, they heard a voice coming from a grave. "Boys! Help me, boys!" The voice called out to them. It wanted them to come. Then they saw just ahead, near a grave. Well, it didn't take long to react. The young men were certain they had seen a ghost and ran out of the cemetery as quickly as possible, hoping that whoever or whatever that was wouldn't follow. They actually went to the police and reported what they saw. The police officer had the young men return with him to the cemetery. After a search with a flashlight, they found out that some guy from town had also taken the shortcut and fell into an open grave. The freshly dug grave was too deep to climb out, so he called out for help. The boys then worked together to pull the poor guy out of the grave. They laughed when they learned the truth, but my grandfather said that he never took that shortcut again. I once got locked out of the house as a child, but strangely enough, it's a comforting memory. My grandmother and I had just returned from the store, carrying a freshly made fish sandwich. She parked the car and we went up to the front door, only to realize she'd forgotten to take the house key. The neighbors had a spare, but their house was completely empty, and there was no telling when they'd be home. What to do? Well, we settled down on the front porch, unwrapped the warm fish sandwich, and dug in right there on the steps. It was the perfect place for an al fresco meal. I can still recall the pure, quiet happiness of that moment, and I didn't have a care in the world other than finding joy in the food and the company. The front porch, a loved one, and a favorite comfort food turned into a memory I'll always treasure. Are you curious about taking the difficulty level even closer to C2? We could do it with a few tweaks. For example, I can explore ways to avoid using both comforting and comfort since they're similar. Remember, variety is important. Also, because variety is important, I'll try not to make every sentence a long one as I increase the level of difficulty. And I'll challenge myself to use even richer vocabulary. I once got locked out of the house as a child, but strangely enough, in retrospect, the memory fills me with peace. My grandmother and I had just returned from the store, carrying a freshly made fish sandwich. The aroma was absolutely tantalizing. My grandmother eased the car into the driveway and we went up to the front door, only to make the shocking discovery that she'd forgotten to take the house key. The neighbors kept a spare, but their house was completely deserted at that hour, and there was no telling when they'd be home. So what were we to do? The smell of the fish was nothing short of irresistible. In the end, we settled down on the front porch, unwrapped the warm fish sandwich, and savored each bite right there on the steps. It was an alfresco feast, improvised yet perfect. To this day, I can still recall the pure tranquility of that simple moment. I didn't have a care in the world other than finding joy in the food and the company. The familiar front porch, the presence of a loved one, and a favorite comfort food transformed into a memory I'll always cherish. Next, I want to share stories for oral reading fluency. They make use of common vocabulary you need for everyday communication. I give light, said the sun. They need me. We provide water, said the clouds. They need us more. Without me, it would always be night, the sun informed the clouds. They continued their war of words until a small voice rose from the ground to the air. I need you both to grow, said a plant. It took a second to hear that voice of reason. Then the sun and the clouds acted together to produce every color. Through the air and over that little plant, they sent a special sign of peace.
The house had stood for more than a century, and there wasn't anything modern about it. Old was only one word to describe the place. Among the local people, the house was the subject of much talk and wonder. Years ago, the farm served a family well. One couldn't pass the property without noting its beauty. Then one day the entire family was gone, yet many things remained. It was so sudden that the whole situation raised questions. The house had fallen quiet. Its dark windows held secrets. If only walls could talk.
A long time ago, a young man and woman lived at the edge of a forest. They were the picture of happiness. They often walked arm in arm through the trees and along a stream near their home. One day, the woman walked too far alone and became lost. The young man tried, but could not manage to find his beautiful wife. He walked across most of the forest, from east to west, and then from north to south. Several weeks passed. Time tested the limits of his hopes. Then one day, as the sun set and the stars appeared above, the man saw an unusual tree. The moment he stood under its branches, he could view his wife's face on the surface of the tree. The man fell to the ground and asked the forces that took her to let her go. When nothing happened, he offered to trade himself. Please, take me instead. A cold white light fell around the man, and the next time he opened his eyes, he was looking down from the branches at his beautiful wife. She was free, but he was not. For many years, the woman visited the tree. Every evening, she could see her husband's face up in the branches. Every evening, he gave her a sad smile. Today, they say there is still a tree deep in the forest, that turns white when the sun sets. Some believe the husband and wife enjoy a short reunion at that moment. School can seem like a play where someone hands you a part. Many of us wish we could pick another character. Don't believe me? If you could listen in on our thoughts, you'd know the truth. I'm the popular one. Everyone knows when I enter a room. People pay attention to what I wear, what I say, and what I do. But sometimes the attention is too much. I wonder if I'm being the real me. I'm the smart one, the one the teachers love. Everyone expects me to deliver only the best results. I've come to expect the same. What if one day I didn't? I'm the football player, the basketball player, and the baseball player. I don't remember deciding to make sports my life. It just happened. I have this memory of me planting flowers with my mother. I love sports, but, well, I think, where did that boy in the garden go? I'm the quiet one they don't notice. I think the teachers don't always see me either, but I observe everything. I store a lot of thoughts in my head. If I stood up on a desk and shouted, would anyone hear me? Would they listen? We all play our part. It's one big performance. But who are we performing for? Can I leave the stage? I'd rather write my own story. Give me a pencil and paper. Amy's older sister was the pretty one. Even as a little girl, Lisa caught people's attention. In Amy's case, people regarded her as a quiet, serious child. Around the age of 7, Amy began to recognize that she and Lisa shared little in common. A single year separated them, but through blood they shared the same parents, the same hair color, and very little else. As they grew older, Amy felt their differences become stronger. Lisa walked around with a broad, happy smile and could easily laugh with others. Amy, though not unhappy by nature, chose to contain her feelings rather than express them freely. So while Lisa could gather an audience to listen to her every word, Amy spoke in a soft voice that not everyone made the effort to hear. It was almost impossible to understand why their father frequently mixed up their names. He would smile at his mistake and say, "Ah, girls, you're more alike than you think." The daughters disagreed. Lisa is the special one, thought Amy. She has the face and the voice that people remember. Amy is the special one, thought Lisa. She has a sharp mind and is at the top of her class. The common thought that neither girl would say aloud was, "I wish I were more like my sister." I've also shared some holiday stories over the years. Some are classics, and occasionally I felt inspired and wrote an original story. Enjoy. All right, The Gift of the Magi by O. Henry. Della counted the money on the table again. $1.87. That was all she had saved, and the winter holiday was already here. She wanted to give Jim a gift that would show how deeply she loved him, but the amount felt painfully small. Jim and Della lived in a modest apartment. Life was not easy, but they were proud of what they shared. Della's greatest treasure was her long, shining hair, which fell below her waist. Jim's most valued possession was his grandfather's old watch, something he carried with quiet pride. As Della stood by the window, an idea slowly formed. She put on her coat, wrapped her hair tightly, and hurried down the street. At a small shop, she sold her hair. The money felt heavy in her hand, but her heart was steady. She searched carefully and finally found the perfect gift, a simple, elegant chain for Jim's watch. That evening, Jim came home later than usual. When he saw Della, he stopped. His face showed surprise, then confusion. Her hair was gone. Della rushed to explain, saying it would grow back and that she had done it for him. She handed him the small package with excitement. Jim opened it slowly. Inside was the watch chain. He smiled, but there was a sadness in his eyes. Then he gave Della his gift. When she opened it, her breath caught. Inside were beautiful combs she had admired for months, combs made for long, flowing hair, which she did not have at the present. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then they laughed softly. Their gifts could not be used, at least not now, but that no longer mattered. Each had given up their greatest treasure for the other, Della her hair and Jim his watch. They sat together that evening, understanding something important. The value of a gift is not in its price or in its usefulness, but in the love and sacrifice behind it. And in that small apartment, their simple life felt richer than ever. All right. The first version we'll read is A2. I'd say this is like high beginner, low intermediate, more like high beginner. Okay, photos courtesy of Pixabay. Okay. All right. There was a man in London, and his name was Scrooge. He was not kind. He loved money more than anything. He did not like Christmas and thought it was a waste of time. But one Christmas Eve, 3 ghosts visited Scrooge. These visits changed everything. Okay? I think for most of you, this is easy to understand, but there may be some for whom this is still a challenge. Some of you intermediate and advanced students can help and give some definitions. Can someone explain ghosts, and put that in the chat? We might have some beginners watching, and that would help. Who visited Scrooge? 3 ghosts. At least I see Scrooge McDuck. Yeah. Okay. All right. The first ghost showed Scrooge his past. He saw happy times when he was younger. People cared about him. The second ghost showed the present. Scrooge saw other people and families. They were enjoying the holiday. Scrooge understood that people might have little money, but they could still find happiness. The third ghost showed him the future. In the future, Scrooge was alone and sad. No one needed him or liked him. This made him think. He knew he needed to change. Was it all a dream? Did he sleep through Christmas? When Scrooge woke up, it was Christmas morning. It was a new day, and he decided to be kind. He gave money to help people, and he visited his nephew, his only living relative, I should say. Everyone was surprised because Scrooge was so different. From that day on, Scrooge became a good person and helped others. This made him happy. He had the Christmas spirit every day of the year. Okay, let's raise the level of difficulty, guys. Level B1. Level B1. Once upon a time in London, there was a man named Ebenezer Scrooge. He was not a happy man. He loved money more than anything else. He did not like people, and he especially did not like Christmas. He thought it was a waste of time and money. One cold Christmas Eve, Scrooge saw a ghost. "I am the ghost of Christmas past," said the spirit. Scrooge went on a journey to his own past. He saw himself as a young boy. He remembered happier times. He also remembered being in love as a young man, but he lost the love of that woman because he began to care more about his business than her. The ghost of Christmas past disappeared, and a new spirit came. This one was cheerful. "I am the ghost of Christmas present," said the spirit. He or she, let's say it. I can't remember honestly. It showed Scrooge scenes of people enjoying Christmas in the present. Families were sharing meals. Friends were sharing laughter. And even the poorest of families found joy in being together. One scene touched Scrooge deeply. It was of his own employee, Bob Cratchit, celebrating Christmas with his family. The Cratchit family had little money, but they were happy and thankful for the time they could spend together. Scrooge began to understand how wrong he had been in all the choices he had made. The second spirit disappeared, and a third ghost came. It was mysterious and silent. Scrooge recognized it as the ghost of Christmas yet to come. He was very scared to see his own future. Without saying a word, the ghost showed Scrooge a future filled with sadness and loneliness. People spoke badly of him, and there was no one who would miss him. At one point, Scrooge was taken to a dark, sad place. It was a graveyard. There, Scrooge saw a lonely grave, and he understood that it was his. The old man was going to die alone and unloved if he did not change his ways. Scared of everything he saw, Scrooge wanted another chance in life. He promised to be a better person and to celebrate the true spirit of Christmas. Suddenly, Scrooge woke up in his own bed. It was Christmas morning. Extremely happy that he had a chance to change and live a better life, he ran out into the streets. He gave money to help others, greeted people with kindness, and even joined in the Christmas fun at his nephew's house. From that day on, Scrooge was a new man. He became known for his generosity and kindness, and he discovered the true meaning of Christmas, the joy of giving, and the warmth of love between friends and family. And now we're going on to B2 and a little higher. In the bustling city of London,
there lived a miserly man named Ebenezer Scrooge. He was known for his frugality, disdain for humanity, and a particular aversion to Christmas. Scrooge was a solitary figure, but he soon had unexpected company on a cold Christmas Eve. The first to arrive was the ghost of Christmas past. The spirit appeared in a shimmering light. The ghost guided Scrooge through time, revealing scenes from his youth when he was full of hope and joy. They witnessed moments of love and friendship. With a heavy heart, Scrooge observed how the pursuit of wealth gradually extinguished his youthful enthusiasm, and he had also lost the love of a woman. The ghost's unworldly touch brought him back to the present, leaving Scrooge in contemplation. Any questions? A lot of words here, right? Miserly man. We know he began as not generous and then became generous. So if he was very stingy, he was holding on to his money and not wanting to spend it on anyone or anything. He would even sit in his own cold office, even though he had the money to heat it up with more coal. He didn't want to spend money. That's a miser. Miser is the noun, miserly is the adjective. So he was a miserly man. And again, not wanting to spend, he's very frugal. That's the adjective. Frugality is the noun. Disdain for humanity. He didn't like it. He looked down on it. He did not like people or socializing with people. He didn't greet people on the streets, and no one greeted him because they knew he felt disdain, dislike, strong dislike, and a particular aversion to Christmas. He also didn't like Christmas. So if you have an aversion to something, there's strong feelings against it. So basically, he's one really unhappy guy. Doesn't like anything or anyone. Okay? All right. So sad guy. After all that he saw in the past, he was left in contemplation. Contemplation, contemplate, think. Think deeply. When you contemplate, you think deeply. He's starting to think like, oh my gosh, I used to be one way. I'm really different now. What happened? What changed? What am I doing? So he's really thinking deeply about the life that he's living and the changes that have happened over time. Next, the ghost of Christmas present appeared, a jolly figure radiating warmth. This spirit whisked Scrooge away to observe the current holiday celebrations, including the festivities at the home of his nephew, the only living relative Scrooge had. The nephew had invited his grumpy uncle to Christmas dinner, but Scrooge most ungratefully refused. The ghost showed scenes of merriment and generosity, from lavish feasts to humble gatherings. There was a stark contrast between the festive joy of others and Scrooge's own somber existence. Again, this is high, intermediate, low, advanced, quite advanced at times with the vocabulary. Jolly figure, happy figure, radiating warmth. The sun radiates warmth and light, right? It sends it out. Radiate. You can radiate good things, radiate joy, radiate happiness. You can see someone who's happy and their smile radiates kindness, for example. So this spirit quickly took Scrooge away, whisked him away to observe celebrations. And although the nephew was very kind to invite him to Christmas dinner, Scrooge was very grumpy and said, no, don't invite me, don't bother me, leave me alone. He was ungrateful, ungratefully refused. Okay, again, I'm checking the chat, so if you have more specific vocabulary questions, feel free to ask. Merriment, look inside, this is the noun. Merry with a Y, like Merry Christmas. Merry is the adjective. Merry, merriment. Here we go again with generosity, the noun of generous. Okay. The most poignant scene featured Bob Cratchit, Scrooge's underpaid and overworked clerk. Despite his meager income, Cratchit clearly enjoyed the company of his loving family, especially his ailing son, Tiny Tim. Scrooge could not help but feel a pang of remorse as he saw Tiny Tim's fragile form, realizing the dire consequences of his penny-pinching ways. Scrooge paid his hard-working employee very little, and the father struggled to provide for all his children. Right? Poignant, it's strong, and it makes an impression. It creates this sadness. He saw this scene, and he really understood, like, oh my gosh, he felt badly watching this scene. It brought him a strong feeling of sadness, poignant. So Bob Cratchit is his employee, his worker, underpaid, overworked, had a meager income. So Scrooge paid him very little. His income, his earnings, his pay was very little, his meager income. Cratchit had a number of children, and one of them, Tiny Tim, was ailing. Well, if someone is not able to provide well for the family, they don't have everything they need, like food, medicines, etc. Tiny Tim, he's ailing, he's sick. And Scrooge sees that Cratchit is not able to provide better care for his son, and he feels this pang of remorse. Sorry, my throat is getting scratchy. If I start coughing, excuse me. So remorse is a feeling of regret. You're sorry for something. Pang is a sharp feeling. You can have a pang, like pang of hunger, like, oh, I'm so hungry. This pang of remorse is this feeling of deep regret. He's very sorry. Like, he understands that he is partly to blame for this situation. Tiny Tim is sick, he's fragile, he's weak. And these are the unhappy consequences, the serious negative consequences of pinching his pennies and not paying his employee enough. Haunted by Tiny Tim's uncertain fate, Scrooge pleaded for another chance to mend his ways. The ghost of Christmas present vanished, leaving Scrooge in solitude once more. So Scrooge is starting to think, not only am I sorry, but I want to change. And he's starting to ask, I need a second chance. Let me change. Let me mend my ways. Let me change my behavior. But that second ghost, the ghost of Christmas past, vanished, disappeared. Okay. As the clock struck midnight, the final apparition emerged, the ghost of Christmas yet to come. A silent, foreboding figure, the spirit revealed a future that brought sorrow and death. Scrooge witnessed his own lonely demise with no mourners to say farewell. The harsh truth of what waited for him struck him like a bolt of lightning. Right? Emerged, came out, then third ghost came. Ghost, spirit, apparition, similar words. Right? His demise, he sees that in the future, it's just getting worse and worse. It's leading to an end. It's like a breakdown. And when he finally dies in that future yet to come, there's no one to mourn him, no one to feel sad. Like, oh, that's so sad that Scrooge passed away. No one is going to be sad because he's not doing anything to make anyone care about him. Right? But then he realizes all of his errors, all of his mistakes, and this strikes him like a bolt of lightning. Strike, past tense, struck him like a bolt of lightning. Again, that sharp feeling. With pang, it's like, really, oh my gosh, I really, really need to change. It struck him like a bolt of lightning. It was a strong realization. When Scrooge was confronted with his own grave, he grew desperate for a second chance. He implored the spirit to change his fate. The ghost without uttering a word, pointed to the gravestone as a final warning. Scrooge understood that he alone had the power to alter this dark future if he embraced the true spirit of Christmas. Awakening in his own bed on Christmas morning, Scrooge felt a surge of determination. Overwhelmed with gratitude for the chance to redeem himself, he vowed to change for the better. Eager to spread goodwill, Scrooge left his home with a smile. He donated to charities, showered kindness on acquaintances, and surprised Bob Cratchit with a generous raise. The transformation was profound, and the city of London buzzed with whispers of Scrooge's newfound benevolence. Let's pause for a moment, and then there's the last two paragraphs. Confronted with his own grave. So with this last spirit, the spirit of the future, the ghost of Christmas yet to come, he's looking at his own grave where he's going to be buried. Confronted, he's faced with it, he sees it, and he's desperate, right? He's very, very much wants a second chance, and he's asking, greatly asking, he's pleading, he's imploring the spirit, please change all of this, don't give me this future. But the ghost again is reminding him, like, hey, this is the future, and if you don't want it, something has to change. So without uttering a word, without saying a word, this last ghost is silent all the time. It doesn't utter a word, it points to the gravestone. And then Scrooge understands that he's the one that has the power to alter the future, to change the future, if he embraces and holds the Christmas spirit. So he wakes up and he has this big feeling that's getting stronger and stronger, this quick, sudden feeling of determination, of desire to change. He is filled with thankfulness, right? He's overwhelmed with gratitude. This feeling is just filling and overflowing inside of him. He has so much to be thankful for because he has a chance to change, a chance to redeem himself, a chance to do something about past mistakes. And so he promises to change. He vowed to change for the better. Okay? And it's very nice that he begins to pay his employee a much better salary. Okay? As Christmas festivities unfolded, Scrooge found himself surrounded by people who genuinely cared for him. The once isolated miser became a beacon of hope and joy, proving that even the coldest hearts could thaw in the warmth of the holiday spirit. And so, in the heart of London, a reformed Scrooge discovered the true essence of Christmas, a time for love, compassion, and the renewal of one's spirit. Hey, is that nice? The actual story is much better, but there's a lot more to read, okay? The Christmas festivities unfolded. It's just a nice way to say they happened. They took place. One thing and another thing, they unfolded. Remember miser, miserly? Miser is the noun, miserly is the adjective. We begin the story and we see Scrooge as a miser. He lives it's a miserly life. He's very frugal and doesn't want to spend his money. But he changes and becomes a beacon of hope and joy. A beacon is like a light. Think of like a lighthouse with the light shining so that ships can find their way. So he becomes this light for people, like a model for others to see. That is generosity. That is kindness. So he becomes an example of hope and joy. And his transformation, his change, proves that the coldest hearts can thaw. If we have ice and we put it under the sun, or we just take it out of the freezer and put it in the sink, it's going to thaw and melt. If you have a frozen turkey and you want to cook it first, you have to thaw it. Thaw, right? Thaw is coming to room temperature, and then eventually something like ice can melt. But his heart was cold, and then it thawed with the holiday spirit. The true essence the true, we'd say the spirit, the whatever is something, whatever makes something what it is. It's the truth, it's the authenticity, the genuine thing inside of something. The true essence of Christmas is not about, shopping and buying gifts and taking pictures with Santa Claus at the mall, although these are all fun traditions, somewhat at one level, that's more of a superficial level, but deep down, the true essence of spirit is really just about joy and happiness and sharing joy together with friends and family. So even with or without gifts. So I hope you enjoyed it. Okay?
Well, every story has a name, a title, and I've decided to give this story a title called A Different Kind of Christmas. All right? A Different Kind of Christmas. Let's read just a little bit and then I'll ask some questions to make sure you're following along. I hope the text is big enough. I think I can go just a little bit bigger for you. Abos, as long as you're here on YouTube watching me, you are one of my students, one of my online students. Ahmed, nice to have you here from Somalia. Okay, looks good on my laptop. I think it's big enough for you to read, yes? Princess, I'm originally from Pennsylvania, but I'm coming to you live right now from Massachusetts. That's in the northeast of the U.S. Okay? All right, guys. A Different Kind of Christmas. When Ben was little, he wrote a letter to Santa Claus every year on December 1st. He had been taught to be polite when penning his letter to the North Pole, so he started with, "Dear Santa," and proceeded to ask how Santa and Mrs. Claus were doing before launching into his wish list. Sometimes Ben would write a few drafts, depending on how many times his priorities changed. One year, Ben couldn't decide what to put at the top of his list. A new video game and new hockey skates seemed equally important. In the end, he went with the skates, and he was very pleased that Santa understood his greatest wish that year. Brand new skates appeared under the tree on Christmas morning. As the years went by, Ben stopped mailing a Christmas list to Santa. Instead, he kept a wish list online and updated it throughout the year. Since Santa is the kind of guy who's in the know, the most desired gifts unfailingly ended up under the Christmas tree, and not just for Ben, but for the whole family. In fact, Ben had assumed that Christmas morning always brought presents for everyone. Then all that changed one year. Much that had been taken for granted soon became very precious. Okay. All right. So you get a sense of Ben, that he's no longer little, right? And as a kid, he used to write a letter. What's another way to say write? Write a letter, write a story, write a thank you note. We all write with our computers and phones today, but in the past we always had pens and pencils. So pen can actually be used as a verb when penning his letter, when writing his letter. Can you guess this meaning? Maybe you know the word launch, like launch a rocket. But he first would ask Santa and Mrs. Claus, how are you doing? I hope you're well, just to be polite, before launching into his wish list. What does it mean to launch into something? Can you guess? Launching into. Well, when a rocket launches, it's starting its travel, its trip, right? Its journey. So when you launch, you start something. So The whole purpose of a letter to Santa is to write what you want. That's what a lot of American children are taught to do, that you write a Christmas list to Santa. Dear Santa, I've been a very good boy or very good girl, and for Christmas I would like da 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 da. And they start listing the different things that they would like for Christmas. And Ben, of course, took the time to be a little polite with Dear Santa, ask how they were doing, and then start his wish list, launch into his list. Drafts, right? When you know that you're going to write different versions, multiple versions, until you get to the final one, that means all the previous versions are drafts, right? It's nice to know this expression was when something is completely new, you can call it brand new. I have a video in my vocabulary playlist on words and expressions for new. How do we talk about new things? Brand new. They bought a brand new car. Ben got brand new skates. Okay? Santa himself is a symbol of the North Pole. But as the years went by, he stopped mailing a list. Why? Because most lists today are online, right? When you change it and you keep changing it so that it reflects your latest wishes, your most recent wants, then you're updating it. And when something happens unfailingly, right? Look inside. What do you see? Fail. If you fail to do something, then you don't do it. But un means not. Unfailingly. Unfailingly. So unfailingly means it just always happened. The most desired gifts always ended up under the Christmas tree in his family. They unfailingly ended up. So up until this point, a lot of things had been taken for granted. That's a good expression, taken for granted. Perhaps some of you know that. You can explain in the comments how you understand when you take things for granted. So Ben had a pretty good childhood, pretty steady, reliable family life in his house. They always had Christmas. They always had gifts under the tree. But much had been taken for granted. Yes, brand new sneakers, like Manuel, right? Brand new shoes. If you just don't fully appreciate things because they're always there, then you're taking them for granted. You can take people or things for granted, meaning you just assume that's the way it is. That's the way it's always going to be. And then we fail to appreciate what we really do have until it's taken away. So if you take something for granted, you're not fully aware or appreciative of what you have. Much that had been taken for granted soon became very precious. So here comes the change in Ben's life. Hey, Ray. When the COVID pandemic hit, life changed for Ben's family. He and his younger sister spent more time at home because their school closed and classes were held online. At first, it was kind of fun for Ben to attend school in pajamas while camping out in his bedroom with his iPad. But the routine soon became old. Ben missed sitting in different classrooms, walking through the hallway with his backpack, saying hi to teachers, talking with friends between classes, catching up more at lunchtime, and riding the bus home. Sarah was only 2 years younger, but talking to her wasn't the same as talking to classmates. His parents were home a lot more too, especially when the cafe they ran had to shut down. For months, all 4 of them were home together day after day. His father was not one to complain about a bad situation, and his mother was forever looking on the bright side. She'd say positive things like, "It's a nice change to have lunch together during the week," or, "Isn't it great not to rush out the door hoping you won't miss the school bus?" Okay. Yes, Manuel, good. So before, things had been taken for granted. He just thought, things are always going to be that way. They're surely to happen. Why would he write on December 1st? Because Christmas is on December 25th, and children know that they need to send their letter to Santa in time for Santa to prepare the gifts for Christmas Eve. So the tradition has been to send a letter to Santa so that Santa gets the wish list, prepares the gifts, and delivers the gifts on Christmas Eve, so that on the 25th, Christmas Day, children wake up and find presents under the tree. But things changed in Ben's family because of COVID, right? The schools closed, classes were online, and how did Ben feel about that? Mixed feelings a little bit, right? How did Ben feel about all those changes? He took school for granted. He took seeing his friends for granted. And there was a change for his parents too. Hey, Jessica. That's okay. Good night, Jessica. You can catch up tomorrow. So why were his parents home more too? COVID hit everybody in some way, right? They had a business, a family business. And what happened to their business? Phrasal verb. When something shuts down, it closes. So as you know, the restaurant industry, the food industry, the service industry was hit hard. They were impacted by the pandemic. A lot of small businesses suffered, especially in 2020. It was rough for a lot of families. Imagine if your main source of income was taken away from you. Things became difficult. For some families, it became very hard. I see your comment, Ray. But there's something interesting about his parents. It was not an ideal situation. They had to close their cafe down, but his father was not one to complain, and the mother looked on the bright side. A nice expression. When you look on the bright side, you're very positive. You're optimistic. We can say that in conversation. Well, look on the bright side. See it positively. Yes. Okay, yet at 15, Ben was old enough to read the concern in his parents' eyes. They weren't poor, but they also weren't rich. Their cafe was a popular spot in town, and his parents ran it with great pride and pleasure. It had been their dream, and they worked hard to make it successful enough to buy a small 3-bedroom home. Because the cafe had been hit by the pandemic, the family's livelihood was in jeopardy. Even Sarah picked up on the possible fate their parents faced. This might be new for some of you, but you can guess. If something is in jeopardy, is that good or bad? Some hints? There's concern in their eyes. Not rich. Cafe was hit. So their livelihood was in jeopardy. Livelihood. Thank you for subscribing, Rajwinder. And Manuel, thank you for typing definitions, explanations. It's helpful for everyone. Livelihood. Your livelihood is how you make money to live. Everyone needs a livelihood. And if your livelihood is in jeopardy, then the means to make enough money to support yourself is at risk. It's in danger. So if something is in jeopardy, it's threatened. It's at risk. That's not good. Right? When the adults were out of earshot, she, meaning Sarah, asked, "If Mom and Dad can't run the cafe, how will they pay for things? And if they can't pay for things, will we have to sell the house and move?" Ben felt it was his job as the big brother to reassure her. "They have some savings. We'll be okay for a while." "For how long?" Sarah pressed. "They'll make things work. We all will. The cafe won't be closed forever, but we can't spend too much while money is tight. We just won't buy anything we don't need. We can do stuff to help, like not run up the electric bill, and you can stop taking such long showers." I like my long showers, protested his sister. Yeah, and you like abusing all the hot water, which Mom and Dad pay for, by the way, said Ben. Oh, Sarah replied quietly. I didn't think about that. Okay, I'll be quicker in the shower. Okay. Reassure, when you reassure somebody, perhaps you see this word that you know. Sure is certain. So when you want to calm somebody, ease their fears, tell them that you're sure everything will be okay. You reassure them. So the big brother was reassuring the sister. We'll be okay. But Sarah's concerned. She's pressing. But she's still concerned. She's pushing to get answers. Right? Ben and Sarah followed their parents' example, and they didn't complain about seeing fewer of their luxuries as the weeks went on. Their pantry looked a little leaner, and at one point their parents announced that they were going to move fully into the 21st century by giving up cable TV. We have the internet, their father reasoned. You kids have your iPads, and Mom and I have our phones. We can still watch movies, but we don't need 100 TV channels, do we? Of course not, their mother agreed cheerfully, though Ben knew his mother liked to record her favorite programs on the DVR and watch them when she could. We could all do with less screen time. But Ben didn't need them to explain. His parents were clearly cutting expenses due to their reduced household income. He wished he could help, but looking for a part-time job at the age of 15 during a pandemic wasn't the best timing. Thank you. Good expression, Manuel. I'm glad you highlighted that. Right? While money is tight, you don't have much, people are tightly holding on to the money that they have because they don't have much of it. So when money is tight, you have to be very careful with your spending. So one of the changes that we saw happened in their pantry. I know some of you from Patreon know this word, pantry. What do you find in the pantry? Marco Polo, Valencia, hello there. Pantry. Who knows what's found in a pantry? What is stored or kept in a pantry? Hey, Eddie. Glad you're here. Well, they didn't complain about seeing fewer of their luxuries as the weeks went on. Their pantry looked leaner. Pantry, is where you store your food, right? So maybe at one point their pantry was always full of snacks and all kinds of things, but the pantry looked a little lean, meaning thin, not thick, empty, not full. So they had less food. They weren't buying things that they didn't need. They were only buying what they absolutely needed to eat. So they were having fewer luxuries in terms of food. And then they had the idea of, let's cut the cable bill. You don't need all the TV channels. Let's get rid of it and just use our devices. We have the internet. SK Dwadi, I don't know your question. Is it how do you address Santa? You can say Santa or Santa Claus. Okay. So they're trying to cut expenses. Ben understood. Okay. Then the December holiday season rolled around, and it was obvious that no one would be doing any big shopping trips. Ben's mom had a creative streak, and she proposed that they all make gifts for each other for Christmas. No one needs to buy anything. Only give gifts that you can make yourself, okay? Urgh, Ben grumbled. That sounds like an art project or something. I'm not exactly the arts and crafts kind of guy, as you'll recall. So get creative in another way, Ben's father suggested. That's what I'm going to do. You know me, I can't even draw a stick figure that looks human. Yeah, I know, Ben laughed. You passed your art genes on to me. Let's pause there for a second. Okay, money is tight. Things are lean. They can't spend too much. So although normally people, especially here in the U.S., we do spend more in December, we spend on the holidays, but they're not going to take any big shopping trips in this family this year. Okay, living hand to mouth, yes, that's like really desperate. They're not quite desperate yet, but they have to be careful because money is tight. So Ben's mom has an idea. If normally you buy gifts for friends and family, what is her suggestion? What did she propose? When you propose something, you suggest an idea. You offer an idea for consideration. She proposed that. She suggested that. Do you see her suggestion? She suggests, hey, let's make gifts for each other, you know. And why does she have this idea? She had a creative streak. This is a word that we use, and we can describe it many different ways using different adjectives to talk about what our nature is like, what kinds of talents we have. So if she has a creative streak, it means there's a part of her that's very creative. She likes to create things. Maybe she's an imaginative, maybe she's a bit of an artist. She has a creative streak, right? How does Ben react? Arg. That's not a pleasant sound. Arg, like it's grumbling. It's not a sound of pleasure. It's like, it's not a good reaction. It's a bit of a complaining sound because you're not happy. If she has a creative streak, Ben does not, right? I'm not exactly the arts and crafts kind of guy. All right, you can do this with all kinds of descriptions. I'm not exactly a science kind of person. I'm not exactly an arts guy, or like what kind of guy? I'm not exactly a sports kind of guy, meaning you're not into sports. Well, Ben is saying I'm not exactly the arts and crafts kind of guy, so why are you asking me to make something? But Ben's father says get creative in another way, because he himself can't even draw a stick figure that is human, right? If you're not a great artist, you should at least be able to draw a stick figure, like circle, like that's the body, arms, feet, eyes and face. That's a typical stick figure. Can you see it? I can go closer. A stick figure. So he's complaining, so I can't even draw a stick figure. And Ben laughs and says, yeah, I know, because he's just like his father, right? He gets his father's genes, his father's DNA. So just like his father, he's not very good at art. Okay. Can it be something I do rather than something I make? Asked Sarah. Sure, honey, said their mother, glad that the family was warming up to the idea. Whatever you think will make Christmas special for the other person. They all agreed not to spend any money on gifts, but Ben wondered what he'd be able to come up with. School was remote, but he still had enough schoolwork to keep him busy. He put off Christmas preparations as long as he could. With only a few days before Christmas, he forced himself to squeeze out every ounce of creativity to make gifts for his family. Christmas morning came. At first, Ben woke up and felt the usual magic of the holiday. Then reality set in, and he wondered what Christmas would be like this year. He almost didn't want to get out of bed and find empty stockings and only the bare floor under the tree. Okay. All right, so the mother had an idea. Hey, we can't buy gifts, let's make gifts. And luckily, the family received the idea positively for the most part. It took some convincing, but then they gradually came to like the idea. So if you warm up to something, warm up to an idea, warm up to a person, warm up perhaps to a new manager or boss or a new colleague, it takes time. Maybe immediately you don't love it, but when you warm up to something, you gradually begin to like it and accept it. Warm up to something. Okay, Ben is not creative like his dad, so he's wondering what he can come up with. Remember that phrasal verb? If you come up with something, you're producing, you're imagining something, you're making something. What can you produce? So he tried to come up with something, but he waited a while. He put off Christmas preparations as long as he could. When you put something off, what does that mean? Add to that, Manuel. Start liking the idea. Karakuram times. Hello. Juan Felix, glad that you're finding this interesting. I'm not always highlighting the grammar, but reading is a wonderful way to see grammar in use. Okay. To put off is to delay. So if he had that creative streak like his mother, he'd be like, oh, I have great ideas. I'm going to get started on the gifts right away. But when you're not really good at something, you need some time. And he's like, I have to make something. I'll do it tomorrow, maybe the next day. So he keeps procrastinating. He's putting it off. He's delaying. So what did he do? He forced himself to squeeze out every ounce of creativity. So it's just a dramatic way to explain that it was really intense for him to be creative because he's not usually a creative, artsy kind of guy. But he did come up with an idea. And it's hard this Christmas, if he took things for granted before, he's not taking those things for granted now. He knows this is a different Christmas, and maybe it's a Christmas that doesn't have all the usual things like presents in the stockings, presents under the tree. It's going to be different, and he's not sure how will it be? Will he like it? It's kind of sad. But Ben was in for a surprise when he opened his bedroom door. His parents had gotten up early. They were putting their excellent cooking and baking skills to use. The kitchen was already full of delicious smells when Ben walked in. Sarah soon followed, likely awakened by the smell of her favorite cinnamon rolls. The first present? A delicious Christmas breakfast for the whole family. Another surprise caught Sarah's eye. Hey, there's something in my stocking. Can I check? Go ahead, the mother laughed. Ben followed, and they reached into their stockings to find candy canes made out of construction paper. It was obviously their mother's handiwork. She had placed a few candy canes in each stocking and took the time to write some of her favorite memories on each one. Okay? You might hear my dog in the background. She hears the dogs across the street and she's barking. She wants to be part of the live stream. Come up with. I address that phrasal verb means to produce, to make. Okay? Marco Polo, I'm trying to look. Sometimes I can't see all the questions. Good. Marco, I will take general language questions towards the end of the live stream. What you're doing right now is wonderful practice. We're reading, we're learning new words and expressions. You're hearing my pronunciation as a model. Towards the end, we'll have a full recording. You can come back and listen to the entire story again. Okay? Procrastinating, delaying. Good, Manuel. Okay? So what's going on? The first present came. It was breakfast. The mother, who is creative, got construction paper. That thick colored paper that you can use for art projects. Red, green, yellow, brown, all different colors. Here in the US, probably in other stores too around the world, the construction paper is sold in these packets. And you open up the packet and you get thick colored paper, different colors. And you can cut the paper for different projects. So she used red and white and she made candy canes. Normally we buy candy canes and you might put them on the Christmas tree or stick them in the stockings as a gift, but she made these. Again, she couldn't buy anything, so she made candy canes. And she took the time to write some of her favorite memories on each one. Remember our trip to Cape Cod? You ordered a large ice cream cone, and I predicted you wouldn't be able to eat it all, but you did. Ben read his mother's neat handwriting and smiled. Yeah, I remember the ice cream. It was the best ever. Sarah and the father read their memories out loud as well. Each one made them all smile bigger and bigger. Okay, that was the mother's gift. Sarah announced that she was ready to give her gifts too. She ran back to her room and returned with her flute. She played 2 Christmas songs, and Ben was charitable enough not to comment on the mistakes he heard. Their parents clapped loudly. Then Sarah surprised Ben by playing the theme song to Star Wars. She knew he was a big fan of all the movies. Ben couldn't believe she'd taken the time to learn all the notes. When did she practice? He hadn't heard her. When she finished, he clapped with genuine appreciation. Why only a stocking and a tree? Because those are the 2 main things that we have in homes. If people celebrate Christmas, you're most likely to find the tree and stockings, maybe a few other decorations. So the stockings are hung on a fireplace or somewhere around the house where small gifts can be placed inside, and the tree is normally where we put larger gifts. We put it under the tree. And the mother's other gift to each person were just some memories. She wrote memories on paper and put those memories inside the stockings. A memory about a trip they took, ice cream they ate, and that was her gift. And Sarah played the flute. Right? Now, as big brothers tend to be, that they might not always appreciate or show appreciation and respect to younger sisters, but he was charitable enough not to comment. Charitable, charity, you may know that word, so you can guess. He was charitable enough not to comment on the mistakes he heard. How would you describe his behavior as the big brother? Sarah's playing the flute. Ben hears mistakes. He chooses not to comment. Why? How is he behaving? What does it mean to be charitable? Charitable. Cinnamon is a flavor. Cinnamon rolls. It's a spice. A brown spice. It's wonderful with apples, for example. This video, Marco Polo, is being recorded, so as soon as I end the live stream, it will become a recording that you can watch again. If you want to translate words into Arabic, Zig Ziglar, you can. I'm sure there are other Arabic speakers here who would appreciate that. You're welcome to. Okay. Charitable, charity. When you show charity, you're showing kindness. You're being generous. So he was generous and kind, and he knew the kind thing to do was not to comment on mistakes. The parents, of course, they're clapping loudly. But then when he heard the song that Sarah had prepared for him, he clapped with genuine appreciation. Was he faking it? Was it real? No, it was real. He wasn't faking it, right? He really thought, wow, she did that. That's good. She did that. She prepared the whole song. She learned it for me. So he genuinely appreciated what she had done for him. She learned a song that she knew he would like. Generous, good. Charitable, polite with mistakes. Yes, yes. Polite, kind, generous. Okay. So their father has gifts too, and you can see bundles. You can make a prediction of what the father is going to give to everyone. Next, their father handed out small bundles to everyone. Each bundle was wrapped in a dish towel. So that's where my holiday towels went, their mother exclaimed. Yeah, sorry, he laughed. I needed something colorful and big enough to wrap my gifts. Their mother unwrapped her bundle first. Oh, you fixed my favorite mug. Thank you. She kissed him to show her pleasure at seeing the handle seamlessly glued back onto the mug. Oh, Ray, thank you. That's so sweet of you. Merry Christmas to you. Thank you for the Christmas present. That's such a cute sticker, too. Okay. So the mother unwrapped her gift, and the dad fixed the mug. Maybe the mug had broken, and he was able to fix it for her, because that was her favorite mug. Daddy, Sarah exclaimed, you fixed my chain. She put on the necklace that had had a broken clasp. Now it was as good as new. As good as new, a nice expression, right? It's not new, but it looks new again. Maybe you cleaned it, maybe you fixed it. So her chain had broken, the clasp, the part that latches on and fastens. So the father was able to fix it. So maybe he doesn't have a creative streak, but he's handy. He fixed the mug, he fixed the clasp, and it had had a broken clasp. It was broken before, and now it's not. Past perfect. Your turn, Ben's father said to him. Ben unwrapped his bundle and was shocked to see his grandfather's watch. Dad, but Grandpa gave it to you. Yeah, his father said, and now it's time for me to pass it on. I know you have your cell phone to check out the time, but this is a lot more special. Thanks, Ben said sincerely. He quietly fastened the watch to his wrist. It felt good to wear. What do you think about the gifts so far? Ben hasn't given his gifts yet, but what do you think about the family gifts so far? Kenan, I'm doing well. Thank you for being here. Ray, I'm still getting a kick out of the motion sticker. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Stunning Lad 1. I appreciate the support in all ways, especially that way. Thank you. Okay, Ben said, my turn. He went to his room and came back with his own gifts. He gave each family member paper booklets. His father got handwritten coupons with promises to shovel the snow and mow the grass without complaint. His mother got similar coupons that stated his various promises to help more around the house. Ben's mom read the first one aloud. This coupon entitles the holder to one family dinner. I will make dinner, maybe frozen pizza, and I'll take care of everything from setting the table to cleaning up. She looked up and smiled with pleasure. That's great, Ben. A night off from cooking. I'll use this one first. She happily read through the rest of her coupons. Do I get coupons too? Asked Sarah. Something different. Look. Right? Coupons you often use in stores, right, for a discount to pay less money, right? But in this case, he's going to give favors, do favors for his parents, help more outside and inside around the house, right? And not complain. Just be more helpful. Okay. What about his sister? Sarah opened her booklet and found a mix of jokes and puzzles. On one page had a maze that said, "Help Sarah find her charger." Sarah was forever misplacing her charger, so she laughed. "Oh, I can find the charger in this maze. It's just a problem when the charger is somewhere in my room." She quickly got a pencil and began to do the maze with glee. "Thanks, Ben," she said when she finished the game. She turned to the next page for more entertainment. And so, the morning was different from all other Christmases, but somehow Ben predicted that he'd always remember this one as one of his favorites. Okay. So for me, a good Halloween story is a good ghost story, something that sparks your imagination and you think about it, and maybe, just maybe, that evening, like tonight, as you're going to sleep and it's quiet in your home and you think about the story, it feels a little spooky. That's a good story. And it also depends on how you tell it. There are some people who are excellent storytellers. I'm probably not one of them, but I do enjoy reading stories aloud, and that's what I'd like to do for you. Of course, the recording will be here if you'd like to listen at a later time and enjoy the story once again. You can, to improve your listening. If there's any particular part of the story that you like, you can use just a segment, a short piece, and use it for pronunciation practice. Okay? What is that a picture of? This is a horse, and there's the guy. He's the rider. And if you look, we do not see a head. We see a pumpkin. So that's kind of a clue. You can understand possibly what this legend is about. Okay? All right. Are you ready? The legend retold by me, English with Jennifer. Okay. But again, the author is Washington Irving. So thank you, Mr. Irving, for the story. I hope the text is big enough. I'll go a little bit bigger and hope that you can see. Let me scroll down just right there. Okay, ready? On the shore of the Hudson River, there was a small, quiet village called Sleepy Hollow. Dutch settlers had come to the area quite some time ago, and subsequent generations continued to live there. For whatever reason, Sleepy Hollow became the setting of many strange tales. People talked of haunted places in and around the village, and the locals believed they heard mysterious music and voices in the air. But from where? Here's a word. I'll just highlight them as we go along. Subsequent, right? The generations that followed. Haunted, right? Places that supposedly have ghosts around, spirits around, haunted. One of the more popular legends was about a headless horseman. Perhaps it was the spirit of a soldier whose head had been shot off by a cannonball during the Revolutionary War. Residents of Sleepy Hollow claimed that he rode in the valley, along the roads, and near the churchyard. It was commonly thought that the ghost rode at night in search of his missing head. He always returned to the churchyard before sunset. Hayaneo hi pratima. Okay, the Revolutionary War, let's have some context here. The U.S., our country, was born in 1776. We had to fight the British to win our independence. So the Revolutionary War led to the birth of the U.S. in 1776. So we're talking the 1700s, and there was fighting, and this guy who was fighting on the side of the British, his head supposedly was shot off by a cannonball, the ball that comes out of the cannon. Just a legend, or just a legend. What do you think? It seemed that anyone who spent any time in Sleepy Hollow soon felt the magic in the air, and it stirred their imaginations enough to see dreams and apparitions of the headless horseman. Right? Dreams, that's what you see at night. Apparitions are like visions. You think you might see something there in the distance. You're not asleep, but something appears. Do you see the similar words? Appear, apparitions. For a while, one young man lived and worked in this eerie place. His name was Ichabod Crane, and he was the schoolmaster. To look at him, you might think the wind could blow him away. He was tall and very thin. His long arms, thin nose, huge ears, and big feet did little to make him handsome. He ran his one-room schoolhouse very strictly. Okay. This is an old-fashioned word, a teacher, right? Schoolmaster, master of the school. So at that time, it was typical in a town or in a village for there to be only one school, a one-room classroom where all the students of all the ages would study, and there was one teacher who gave lessons to all. Okay. So picture Ichabod Crane. He's tall, thin, not too handsome. Though he disciplined his young pupils, he also tried to remain generally well-liked. He spent time with the older boys after school and sometimes walked the little ones home. He knew the villagers rather well, because it was a tradition at this time for the schoolmaster to room and board in a different household, or in different households for 1 week at a time. He enjoyed the arrangement because the food was always plentiful and his appetite was always big. He made sure never to be a burden to any family by helping around the house and the farm where he was a guest. While he might have been strict as a schoolmaster, he was gentle and pleasant as a boarder. A boarder is a person who boards. Room and board, Room and board. Does anyone know what that refers to? Room and board? Did the schoolmaster, did the teacher live by himself? Did he have a place to stay? No. So he lived in the different families. The families that sent their children to school were the families that hosted him. And he stayed there, and he got a room, and he got meals in exchange for teaching the children of Sleepy Hollow. Right? Disciplined, right? He disciplined them. He made sure that they behaved correctly, right? And if they didn't, he punished them. He was strict. This also, today we talk about a teacher and student. So pupils is also, for American English, it's a little old-fashioned. So actually I'm going to put these words in a different color. You can understand them, but don't use them in everyday English today, at least in American English. Okay? All right. Oh, he made sure never to be a burden, right? When you have a guest, that can be a lot of work. But in Ichabod Crane's situation, he tried to make sure that it was pleasant. Yes, they had to give him a room. Yes, they had to give him food. But he helped around the house and around the farm, wherever he was staying, to make sure it wasn't a burden, to make it easier. Yes, we room and board in a bed and breakfast establishment. You get a place to sleep and you get food. It's not a hotel. Ichabod was certainly not much to look at, but he was educated and well-spoken, and this did a lot to win him favor, especially among the women in the village. In contrast to the local farmers with their rough speech and manners, the gentleman schoolmaster was full of knowledge, stories, and eloquence that earned him respect. Right? Eloquence is the beauty of speaking, the beautiful speech. Right? He has good words, good vocabulary. He spoke well. The old Dutch wives would share their tales with him about ghosts, goblins, and the headless horseman. Ichabod found these stories immensely fascinating, and in return he would share what he knew of witches and witchcraft from his extensive reading. Such tales and stories both delighted and scared him. In truth, the sound of his own footsteps sometimes frightened him, because his imagination was so active. Ghosts, goblins like little monsters, little creatures. Immensely fascinating, very fascinating. Remember, I have a lesson on intensifiers, words like very, right? Terribly fascinating, really fascinating, immensely fascinating. Witchcraft, the practice of witchcraft, extensive reading, there's a very good word, a lot of reading. He read a lot, so his extensive reading. Yes, he did not wish to be burdensome. Of all the families he visited, he enjoyed spending time with the Van Tassels the most. The food was delicious, and their 18-year-old daughter was beautiful. Katrina Van Tassel was one of Ichabod's older pupils. He came once a week to instruct her in music. Katrina was lovely, and it was easy to be charmed by her, so it was no surprise that other young men in the village also took interest in her. The Van Tassels were a wealthy family, and this further prompted dreams of marriage in the heads of unmarried men. What's new here for you? I think you understand charmed by her, right? If she has charms, right, there's a lot that's very attractive. She's pretty, she's sweet, and people are attracted to her. They were charmed. Wealthy, prompted. This might be new for some of you. If dreams were prompted, they were it's like inspired, created. They made dreams happen. So people are thinking, oh, she's beautiful and she's rich. Oh, and so they immediately start thinking and dreaming about marrying Katrina. Wouldn't it be nice? So it pushed them to have this desire. It pushed them to have this desire. Okay. I'm looking over. If you have questions, feel free to ask. I'll keep checking the chat. Brom Van Brunt, known to all as Brom Bones, was Ichabod's main competition. His looks and character contrasted with Ichabod's in nearly every way. He was big and strong, with broad shoulders. He had a fun, confident energy about him. Everyone in Sleepy Hollow knew that Brom Bones could ride a horse with great skill. He could also fight if he had to, but he was more likely to seek a good time, and his close friends looked up to him. They rode together, and on some nights they made quite a bit of noise with their excited yelling. These midnight rides occasionally woke up the villagers from their peaceful sleep, but they did not mind much, for they all saw Brom Bones in a positive light. They knew he was a bit wild, rather mischievous, but still basically good at heart. Okay. What could be new? This is a good collocation. Broad shoulders, like wide shoulders, by the way. Phrasal verb, look up to. I think you may know that, right? His friends looked up to him. They admired him. What else might be new here for you? Mischievous. Some people say mischievous. You might hear that variation, but mischievous. Mischief is like playful fun that probably could get you in trouble, could be a little bad, a little dangerous. A mischievous smile is like you know that you did something kind of bad, maybe dangerous, maybe a little naughty, but it's playful. It's not cruel or mean in any way. He was a bit wild and rather mischievous, like playful. Maybe he didn't mean great harm, but he was that kind of guy, right? Akram, I hope I explained prompted. Prompted, right? It prompted dreams, it created, pushed, inspired those dreams. It pushed them to dream about marriage. Okay. When Brom Bones showed interest in Katrina, others were wise enough to step out of his way. Ichabod Crane was the exception. While he knew he could never beat Brom Bones in looks or strength, he believed he could still woo Katrina with his gentle nature and sharp mind. The two men saw each other as rivals. Brom began to play pranks on the schoolmaster, and especially looked for opportunities to make Ichabod look even more awkward in Katrina's presence. Okay, so everyone else knew, hey, Brom is interested in Katrina? Okay, go ahead, Brom. They're not going to compete with him. But Ichabod Crane was the exception, the only one who did not follow the crowd. Right? Sharp mind, that's a good collocation, right? If you're sharp mind, you have intelligence. Rivals, competitors, right? Not quite enemies, but two people who are competing in some way. And we know that Brom Bones was mischievous. He liked to be sort of playful, so he played pranks. A prank is a joke, and it's usually at someone else's expense. It's more than teasing. It's some kind of joke that makes a person look silly or awkward or bad, and it kind of humiliates them, embarrasses them, right? Mischievous, like playful, but in a sort of naughty way, a bad way. Yes, it could be, but it's like you forgive, like a child that's a little mischievous. Like they play a joke and I don't know, like maybe they put honey on my mug so that when I pick up my mug, my hands get all sticky. That's a harmless prank. I mean, it's not pleasant, but it's like, okay, haha. Sometimes in the past, young children would play pranks on their teachers. It's just something that was not dangerous, but a little funny and a little bad. And so the people who do such things are mischievous. They create mischief. Okay. Awkward. Awkward is just the opposite of graceful, right? If someone is like a figure skater or dancer and gymnast, they're very graceful with their movements. But if another person is falling down and bumping into things, they're awkward. You could be awkward physically. You could be awkward in your behavior. You could also have awkward looks, someone who's not classically handsome or classically beautiful. Neither man was willing to step aside and let the other gain Katrina's affections. So when the Van Tassels held a party one evening, both men attended. Another phrasal verb, step aside. Do you get that? It could be physical, like if someone wants to pass, I step aside and let them go, and then I return to my place. But in this case, it's like, are you going to be a barrier, an obstacle, and make it difficult for your rival? Or are you going to let the other guy have a clear path and express their interest to Katrina? They both wanted to get to Katrina and win her heart, but neither man wanted to make it easy for the other. Okay. All right, so it's party night. Ichabod had brushed off his best and only black suit earlier in the day. He borrowed a farmer's horse, which happened to be rather old and gaunt, but its name was Gunpowder, which must have hinted at an inner fiery spirit. The schoolmaster rode through the countryside to the Van Tassel home, daydreaming of a contented life with the lovely Katrina and ample food on the table. I think I should, if anyone gets that, they're going to laugh with me, but I'm going to change this one. Since it's my version, I get to change it as I go along. How about by his side? There we go. That sounds better, more PG. Daydreaming of a contented life with lovely Katrina by his side and ample food on the table. All right. Some of you will get that. Okay, so he wants to look good for the party. He brushes off his suit, right? And this horse that he borrows is old and gaunt, like thin and hungry looking. So, there's Ichabod, who doesn't look so great because he's tall, he's thin, long nose, big ears, long arms, big feet. And then he's riding this horse that's old and also like super thin, hungry looking. So the horse's name is Gunpowder, the kind of powder that helps you shoot a gun. So maybe that hints at an inner fiery spirit. Fiery is the adjective of fire, right? If you have a fiery spirit, you have energy. There's maybe you can do something fast and quick and excitedly. Maybe there's some anger there too, a fiery spirit. Contented. Perhaps content, right, means happy. Content in life, this is just the adjective, like a life that is satisfying. And ample food, this is more bookish. You don't use this in conversation necessarily, but ample food, plentiful, bountiful, sufficient, or enough. Ample food is like plenty of food. Ample food, enough food. So, here's this skinny school teacher and he has a big appetite. So he sees Katrina, she's lovely and beautiful. So he wants the girl, but he also loves food. So he wants the food and he's thinking, well, wealthy family, lots of food. This is what I want. I want the beautiful wife. I want the money. I want the food. And so he's daydreaming about this wonderful life with Katrina Van Tassel. Okay, Brom Bones also showed up on horseback, and he definitely looked much more dashing and impressive on Daredevil, his glossy black horse. Though he was usually one to catch a lady's eye, it was Ichabod who danced gracefully with Katrina at the party. Ichabod had talent both in singing and dancing, and he used the skill on his feet to steal Katrina's attention. Brom Bones looked on with jealousy. Right? If you ride a horse, you're on horseback. That's a good collocation. On horseback. Dashing, like handsome, in like an attractive, exciting way. Dashing. So if Ichabod is riding old Gunpowder, Brom Bones is on Daredevil, a glossy black horse. Glossy, shiny. His horse is beautiful and strong and just like Brom Bones. If you catch someone's eye, you catch their attention. That's a good collocation. So Brom Bones usually catches a lady's eye, but it was Ichabod who danced gracefully with Katrina. Okay. Brom Bones, of course, was not happy about that. Later in the evening, the folks of Sleepy Hollow began to swap superstitions and ghost stories, and they inevitably included the legend of the Headless Horseman. One man enthralled his listeners by telling them how he met the specter one night, and they rode together over the hills. When they reached a bridge, the Headless Horseman turned into a skeleton and threw the man into the brook below. Superstitions, I think you might know, it's like beliefs, and there's no logic or reason. Like if you spill salt and throw it over your shoulder, why do you do that? For good luck. Things that you do for good luck or to avoid bad luck are superstitions. They were swapping, they were exchanging superstitions and ghost stories. And this was, before karaoke and the internet and things like that. So, what else do you do at a party when things start getting quiet? They tell stories. And they inevitably included the legend of the Headless Horseman. If something is inevitable, it just happens. You always know, you expect it. You can't prevent it from happening. If they're going to tell ghost stories, of course they're going to tell the legend of the Headless Horseman. Inevitable, inevitably. It's going to happen. It's just a natural course of actions. You can't stop it from happening. One man enthralled his listeners because he's telling the story. And if he's telling the story that's really exciting and people want to hear, he's enthralling his listeners, right? He's enchanting them. It's like magical. He has their interest. So he's captivating them. He's capturing their interest and entertaining them in an exciting way, right? Enthralled. You're learning all kinds of words for ghost. Ghost, spirit, specter, it's all the same thing. Ghost is the most common word. Specter is what you might read in a book, in a story like this. The horseman turned into a skeleton, like all bones, and threw the man into the brook below. If you're going over a bridge, chances are there is some form of water under the bridge. A brook is like a little stream, a creek. So a brook is water. If a river is large, then brooks and streams are smaller. Yes, they told stories. Okay, so that was the end of the party. But it's not quite done yet. They're still telling stories and ghost stories. Brom Bones then took center stage with a tale of his own. He said he had once met the ghost alone at night and challenged him to a race. Daredevil proved to be faster, and Brom could have won, but as they approached the church bridge, the ghost vanished. There had been a flash of fire, and then nothing. Ooh. If he took center stage, it's just an expression. He wanted to be the center of attention. So he started telling a story of his own, right? He wanted to race with the Headless Horseman, and his horse, Daredevil, was very fast, faster than the horse of the Headless Horseman. Vanished, I hope you know this one. This is a good word to know. If something vanishes, it just disappears quickly. Right? There had been a flash of fire, and then the Headless Horseman was gone. He vanished. He disappeared quickly. Okay. When the partygoers began to leave, Ichabod decided to speak privately to Katrina. No one knows what he said or how she responded, but he left looking quite upset and disappointed. As much as the ride there had been pleasant and hopeful, the long ride back home was dismal. As the night grew darker, Ichabod's memory called forth every eerie story he had heard from the villagers. Though proud and confident at the party, Ichabod was now lonely and scared. The clouds hid the stars, and the poor man had to ride through the haunted places with an imagination too active to control. If you go to a party, you're a party goer, partygoers. Okay, so we had a little private chat with Katrina. We can imagine what he was asking. We can imagine what she said. We don't know, but we can imagine. Wasn't too happy. He was going to the party all happy and hopeful, but the ride home was dismal. You can understand the contrast. Dismal, sad, terrible, lonely. Dismal is a negative word. It's like a dismal day is like sad and gloomy. Something bad has happened. Dismal, dismal. A dismal day, dismal weather, dismal. Dismal is an adjective. Dismay is the noun. As the night grew darker, Ichabod's memory called forth. It just recalled. This is just a fancy way of saying he remembered. He remembered every eerie story. Eerie, spooky, scary. They're all the same. Eerie just means a little scary, but sort of maybe in an exciting way. Eerie story. Lonely and scared. I think everything else should be clear to you. Okay? What do I want to be for Halloween? Maybe some people are the headless horseman. So if you don't know the story, the costume looks really strange to you. But if you see someone, without a head, they're the headless horseman. Ichabod rode past a spooky tree and a haunted stream, and all the while his heart beat faster in fear. Then, in the shadows, a large dark figure appeared. Ichabod found enough courage to call out, "Who are you?" The next moment he knew. It was the headless horseman himself. Okay, we had eerie. Here's a similar word. Spooky. We had the word brook, similar to stream. If you ask me about the difference between a brook and a stream, I honestly can't remember which one is bigger. They're similar, brook and stream. Stream in my mind, I guess it sounds like the water's flowing. I don't know, more strongly. I don't know. Brook and stream, they're basically little bodies of water, like a little tiny river. Okay, a dark figure appeared. All right. What to do? Ichabod was an unskilled horseman, but he gave old Gunpowder a few kicks and began to run away from the ghost. But soon enough the ghost caught up. Ichabod thought he might trick the other rider, so he slowed down. The headless horseman did the same. Ichabod panicked and urged his horse to run again. Gunpowder ran so wildly that the saddle began to slip off. Ichabod wrapped his arms around the horse's neck and held on for dear life. This is a good expression. Held on for dear life. It's like a collocation. It's like he knew that it was life or death. He was holding on because he didn't want to fall down and die. Right? Unskilled. If a horse runs really fast, let's see. Oh, I don't use that word quite yet, but let's see. What would be new to you here? Panicked, I think that word should be familiar to most of you. When you panic, you are so fearful you don't know what to do, right? Panic attack. It's like when you don't know what to do, the fear controls you and you don't know which way to turn or what to do or what to say. He just panicked and you just go on instinct. He urged his horse to run, right? He strongly, it's like a strong command, like go, 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 horse, go. It's strong pressure to make someone or something do something. When you sit on a horse, most of the time you don't sit directly on the horse, you sit on a saddle. That little seat that you sit on the back of a horse is a saddle, and it began to slip off. Okay? The scariest thing? Well, I never saw a headless horseman. That would be scary for me. Ichabod remembered Brahm's story and the part where the ghost disappeared at the bridge. I just need to make it to the bridge, he thought. He galloped on and rode toward safety. However, the headless horseman was closer now. Ichabod looked over his shoulder and saw that the large figure was standing up in his stirrups, holding what seemed to be his own head. The ghost threw the round object directly at Ichabod, who lacked the skill and luck to avoid it. The object slammed into his head. The schoolmaster felt himself tumble down, and he heard Gunpowder, the ghost rider, and the other horse run away. When a horse is running fast, the horse is galloping. Gallop, galloped, galloping. To gallop, that's what a horse does. They run fast. So he's galloping and he thinks he's riding towards safety. But then when he looks over his shoulder, the headless horseman is standing up. How do you stand up when you're on a horse? The things that hold your feet, there are two little things on either side where you can slip your feet into for security. He stood up in those. Those are the stirrups. So he stood up in the stirrups, and he's holding this round object that looks like the head of the headless horseman. And as he threw it, it slammed into Ichabod's head, right? Slammed is like a big, loud hit. Tumble down is not just falling, it's like sort of rolling. Falling and rolling, tumble down. I mean, it's terrible to fall off of a horse. You don't just fall. You fall and you roll and you bump around, right? So horse vocabulary: gallop, stirrup, and we had saddle before. Saddle is what you sit on. Stirrup is where your feet go. And if your horse is running fast, your horse is galloping. Okay? The next day, Ichabod failed to appear at school. A search only found gunpowder and the fallen saddle. There was no sign of Ichabod Crane, except his hat. It lay on the ground. Beside it was a smashed pumpkin. New tales were told as the villagers wondered what dark fortune the schoolmaster encountered. Most speculated that the headless horseman had carried Ichabod Crane off into the unknown. Perhaps the one who knew the truth behind the legend was Brom Bones. He won Katrina's heart, and the two were married. When anyone told the story of Ichabod Crane, Brom would laugh at the mention of the pumpkin. Had it all been a terrible prank? Or did the old schoolhouse truly become haunted by the lonely old Ichabod Crane?
Finally, let's end with some short fables. These are classics known as Aesop's fables. Each one has a moral, a lesson to teach us. Belling the Cat. The mice once called a meeting to decide on a plan to free themselves of their enemy, the cat. At least they wished to find some way of knowing when she was coming, so they might have time to run away. Indeed, something had to be done, for they lived in such constant fear of her claws that they hardly dared stir from their dens by night or day. Many plans were discussed, but none of them was thought good enough. At last, a very young mouse got up and said, "I have a plan that seems very simple, but I know it will be successful. All we have to do is hang a bell about the cat's neck. When we hear the bell ringing, we will know immediately that our enemy is coming." All the mice were much surprised that they had not thought of such a plan before. But in the midst of the rejoicing over their good fortune, an old mouse arose and said, "I will say that the plan of the young mouse is very good, but let me ask one question. Who will bell the cat?" What's the moral of the story? Write it in the comments. Then check the video description where you'll also find vocabulary notes. The Fox and the Grapes. A fox one day spied a beautiful bunch of ripe grapes hanging from a vine trained along the branches of a tree. The grapes seemed ready to burst with juice, and the fox's mouth watered as he gazed longingly at them. The bunch hung from a high branch, and the fox had to jump for it. The first time he jumped, he missed it by a long way. So he walked off a short distance and took a running leap at it, only to fall short once more. Again and again he tried, but in vain. Now he sat down and looked at the grapes in disgust. "What a fool I am," he said. "Here I am wearing myself out to get a bunch of sour grapes that are not worth gaping for." And off he walked very, very scornfully. What's the moral of the story? Write it in the comments. Then check the video description where you'll also find vocabulary notes. The Lion and the Mouse. A lion lay asleep in the forest, his great head resting on his paws. A timid little mouse came upon him unexpectedly, and in her fright and haste to get away, ran across the lion's nose. Roused from his nap, the lion laid his huge paw angrily on the tiny creature to kill her. "Spare me," begged the poor mouse. "Please let me go, and someday I will surely repay you." The lion was much amused to think that a mouse could ever help him, but he was generous and finally let the mouse go. Some days later, while stalking his prey in the forest, the lion was caught in the toils of a hunter's net. Unable to free himself, he filled the forest with his angry roaring. The mouse knew the voice and quickly found the lion struggling in the net. Running to one of the great ropes that bound him, she gnawed it until it parted, and soon the lion was free. "You laughed when I said I would repay you," said the mouse. "Now you see that even a mouse can help a lion." What's the moral of the story? Write it in the comments. Then check the video description where you'll also find vocabulary notes. The Frogs and the Ox. An ox came down to a reedy pool to drink. As he splashed heavily into the water, he crushed a young frog into the mud. The old frog soon missed the little one and asked his brothers and sisters what had become of him. "A great big monster," said one of them, "stepped on little brother with one of his huge feet." "Big, was he?" said the old frog, puffing herself up. "Was he as big as this?" "Oh, much bigger," they cried. The frog puffed up still more. "He could not have been bigger than this," she said. But the little frogs all declared that the monster was much, much bigger, and the old frog kept puffing herself out more and more until, all at once, she burst. Every fable has a lesson, a moral. What's the moral of this story? Write what you think it is in the comments. Then check the video description, where you'll also find some helpful vocabulary notes. The Wolf and the Crane. A wolf had been feasting too greedily, and a bone had stuck crosswise in his throat. He could get it neither up nor down, and of course he could not eat a thing. Naturally, that was an awful state of affairs for a greedy wolf. So away he hurried to the crane. He was sure that she, with her long neck and bill, would easily be able to reach the bone and pull it out. "I will reward you very handsomely," said the wolf, "if you pull that bone out for me." The crane, as you can imagine, was very uneasy about putting her head in a wolf's throat. But she was grasping in nature, so she did what the wolf asked her to do. When the wolf felt that the bone was gone, he started to walk away. "But what about my reward?" called the crane anxiously. "What?" snarled the wolf, whirling around. "Haven't you got it? Isn't it enough that I let you take your head out of my mouth without snapping it off?" What's the moral of the story? Write it in the comments, then check the video description where you'll also find vocabulary notes. I hope you enjoyed this listening practice through stories. That's all for now. If you'd like more interaction and feedback, then please join the English with Jennifer community on Patreon, where we practice all skills for confident, effective communication. The link is in the video description. Thanks for watching and happy studies.